Welcome to the Teachers on Fire podcast, where I profile agents of growth and transformation in education today. Each guest shares their highs, their lows, their passions, their goals, and the resources that are shaping their thinking and inspiring their practice. For show notes and links from each episode, visit teachersonfire.net. You can also follow the show at Teachers on Fire on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm your host, Tim Cavey. Let's meet today's guest. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Beth Houf. Beth is a mom, middle school principal, passionate leader and learner, and forever teacher. She's also the co-author of Lead Like a Pirate, Make School Amazing for Your Students and Staff. Interact with her on Twitter at Beth Houf and engage with ideas from her book at #LeadLAP. Beth, what a thrill it is to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk education?
Most definitely. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm honored to be a guest.
Well, what a pleasure it is to have you. Looking forward to getting into this. Why don't you start by filling in any gaps I left out about your current context in education?
Wonderful. Well, I am the very proud principal of Fulton Middle School in Fulton, Missouri, kind of right in the middle of the state. Fulton Middle School serves about 600 students in grades 6, 7, and 8. And so this is my 11th year as a building principal. I had 15 years of experience teaching and leading in the elementary setting. And then this is my 4th year here at Fulton Middle School. So I get the pleasure of doing this every single day. I've had the pleasure of being the principal of my oldest son, who's now in high school. And then my younger son will be here before I know it. He is 8 and my oldest is 14. And then I also serve in a capacity with our State Department. I am a facilitator for our Regional Leadership Academy, where I have the opportunity and honor to guide and mentor leaders throughout the state in a year-long cohort. And then I also mentor new principals in our Missouri Leadership Development Program that we have here in Missouri. So definitely keep myself busy.
That sounds like a wonderful package of responsibilities, and no wonder you came to write Lead Like a Pirate, given your leadership experience. So I look forward to digging into that. Beth, we're going to start by talking about a low moment that you faced somewhere in your teaching or education career. So share about an experience of adversity that you faced and how you overcame it.
Well, I think my biggest example, and I talk about this kind of as we start the book, Lead Like a Pirate, but I came up very much so in the No Child Left Behind, very punitive as an administrator, especially. When I taught, we didn't have quite that same, it wasn't there as much. But in 2008, my first year as an administrator, I definitely felt the pressure of that. I had the opportunity to take the lead, my first principalship in an amazing school community. However, the scores were deemed appropriate by the government. And so going in, finding out 2 weeks before our school was deemed a failing school. And in our community, we have about 12,000 in our community. So there's only 3 elementaries. And so we had to send letters out that said, hey, your child can choose to go to one of the other schools because you are enrolled in a failing school. And that is a culture killer. I mean, hugely a culture killer. So, we didn't have very many. We had less than 10 kids over 3 years that took that opt out. And that's the problem, is you have to send that letter for the minimum of 3 years because you have to have 2 years of progress. And I'm not sure about how it is in other states, but we don't get state data back super timely. So it's hard to, the school year is always started before we get that data back. And actually this year, we just got our data back within the past month. So not super helpful. So that in itself set my first principalship up just for, I don't know that I really led the way that I truly, what I was passionate about and what I believed in. I led the way I thought I had to lead to get us out of that, which meant I kind of focused a lot on test scores and moving needles instead of school culture. And I still loved what I did, but I hit a point where I was burnt out and I really was ready to go ahead and leave the field of education and go into nursing, which was my other interest that I had when I was in college the first time around. And I went to a conference in 2014, the National Association for Elementary School Principals. And most of my professional development at this point had been how I could be better at leading teachers. I never really had gone to professional development just for administrators. And it was in Nashville. And I always tell the story, at that point, I wasn't about learning because I had already pretty much made my mind up that I was going to leave the profession, but it was Nashville. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go because I've never been to Nashville. That sounds like fun. And it truly was one of those life-changing moments. We had gone to a corporate thing where they invited us in and gave us free food and drinks, and
Right.
went ahead and went and met some amazing principals from New Jersey when we were standing in line for food. And Jay Billy was one of those principals, and he's an amazing friend and colleague now. We sat down and I was kind of telling my story to him, and he asked me, he said, "Are you on Twitter?" And I said, no, I'm not. I have a Twitter. I don't know what to do with it. I went to a Twitter workshop and I follow the 40 people that were in that workshop with me, but I don't know what to do with it. And he took my phone. He said, "You're not following the right people." And so he went through and he showed me all of these authors that I highly respected, all the speakers and the leadership gurus, like they're on Twitter, and I wasn't tapping into that. I realized I had not really led the way that I felt I should be leading. I led the way I thought I needed to lead. And I really wasn't taking time to find a support system for myself. He also asked me at that point, "Hey, have you ever heard of Teach Like a Pirate?" And I said, "No, I've never heard of that." And I was kind of, a little skeptical at first. And
Yeah.
I did a search that night. He said, Dave Burgess is going to be doing a Skype tomorrow, a live Skype, and you really should check it out. And like I said, I was skeptical, but I went back to my room that night and I Googled it, and I found a blog post actually by Shelley Burgess, my co-author and dear friend. And she wrote about Teach Like a Pirate from a leadership lens. And it talked about how we lead with passion, how we have to make sure that passion is the foundation of everything we do as a leader, that we need to be immersed leaders in the important work that happens every single day, that we have to have rapport. Relationships are so important, asking and analyzing, transforming the norm, and then, of course, enthusiasm. And when I read that, it hit me like a ton of bricks. This is why I'm not burnt out. I'm just not directed in the right way. And so came back to my building. I definitely had the chance to listen to Dave, and he blew me away with his energy and enthusiasm and passion, which I know everyone that has the experience of that.
Yeah.
And connected with Dave via social media and started a dear friendship with him that then led me to Shelley. And I feel like I'm part of their family. And, Shelley, at some point, that's kind of where the book came from. We could talk about that later, but came back to my campus and completely renewed sense of energy and had an amazing year. And that made all the difference because I really was able to lead the way that I knew I needed to lead, culture first, culture next, culture always. And when you have a school that people want to be at, it's so much easier to bring test scores up. It's not about the test scores. It's about really a breeding ground for a positive school culture. And then in turn, things get better. So that's just a little snippet of that.
I love stories of dramatic turnarounds, Beth, and yours is certainly one of them. You just heard, folks, another testimony of the power of Twitter and a positive PLN in terms of encouraging this administrator to rethink her mission and inspiring her to take her leadership to a whole new level. And of course, you're right, Beth, in saying that as education leaders, it's so easy to fixate on academic outcomes while overlooking the critical importance of first building that positive school culture, something I know your book speaks to a lot. So let's talk about the book. It's titled Lead Like a Pirate, Make School Amazing for Your Students and Staff, one of the pirate books published by Dave Burgess Consulting and co-authored with Shelley Burgess. So Beth, if you would, share with us the heart and main message of Lead Like a Pirate. Why did you write it, and what can educators expect to get from it?
Well, I think it's great because it ties right into the story I was already telling. When I came back to the school, I definitely, if you could see my office right now, I have books everywhere. I'm a very avid reader. It's what I do when I'm not doing anything else. And I've read all the research books that are about education. I definitely dive into those, not only for classes that I've taken, but just to make sure the practices that we're doing are sound in educational research and pedagogy. But there were not very many books about inspirational leadership and about things that, like really that Teach Like a Pirate. There wasn't that mirrored book for a school leader. I took Teach Like a Pirate and figured out how to make it work for leadership. And Dave and Shelley really noticed that. And I had a group that had asked if I would come in and do a workshop on the things I was doing in our school. And I talked to Dave and Shelley about that because I wanted to call it Lead Like a Pirate. And they're like, of course. And then a couple weeks later, they said, it's time to write this book. And we would really like you, would you be willing to do this? And of course, I never thought of myself as an author. My background is I've come from very humble roots. I always tell this story. My mom and dad were super young when they found out they were pregnant with me. They were 15 when I was born. So, like my trajectory in life was not supposed to be where I am now. And through the amazing relationships of family members and teachers, and, I was able to get where, being here. And so it was amazing that they asked me. And then we started by opening a Google Doc and getting ideas down. And then I hadn't even met Shelley before we started writing the book, actually, which is pretty unbelievable. And that's the power of technology right there. I felt like I did because, I participated in the weekly chats that she hosted on leadership. So then we really worked on making a presentation first. Dave was very similar. Before he wrote TLAP, he did lots of presentations about Teach Like a Pirate. And so we did that. And then, but really kind of the basis of that book is how do we people kept asking, okay, so how do I do this? What do I do with this? How do I do with this? And so it really our goal was to create a resource for leaders that so they wouldn't get to the point I was at of burnout. And, we're going to get stressed. We're going to have times where, we're down, but we don't ever want a person to feel like they're alone or they don't have a support system. So that's really what the Lead Like a Pirate community is all about. And so that was our goal of our book, to really archive practices. We work really hard to make sure that there are a lot of links in the book, but then we also on our website, we also post, we try to curate free content all the time. The book was never really about money. And that's been a nice bonus at the end to help my family, but that wasn't what was driving us. And for me, I'm principling. I plan to principal as long as I can. I love being a principal and I don't want to step out of that role. But I think for me, it was all about serving our leaders. That there are a lot of inspirational books for teachers. And I just felt like I wanted to figure out how could we make sure that we were doing that for leaders as well.
Well, I love the idea of a book that takes the TLAP culture and sort of applies it across an entire organization and school community. So it sounds like that's a lot of what you are all about. And obviously having Dave and Shelley contributing to the direction of the book only brings more of that philosophy into practice. So love the sound of that. I was just introduced to Dave this year, Beth, so I'm still really new myself to the Teach Like a Pirate world. And so I've read through Teach Like a Pirate and slowly going through some of the rest of the books. And the collection, of course, from Dave Burgess Consulting is just growing faster than I can read through it. But they are exactly right. They're phenomenal books. Beth, outside of leadership and culture building, is there something else that you point to and say that excites me about education today?
Well, I struggle because I am that person. Dave talks about it's hard to be passionate about everything. And I really get pretty geeked out about most everything in school. For me, I love to read. I loved young adult literature. I'd like to be able to have those connections with kids. So a big portion of my time outside of school is reading, keeping up with what our kids are reading and then being able to find and connect books to kids. I love doing online read-alouds, book talks. I did a book tasting yesterday. We have an alternative classroom and was able to take a book down there and some donuts and get them into a book that they all are now like, when can I have it? When can I have it? I said, well, I've got to finish it first. So I struggle. I know some people are really good at like having one life at home and one life at school, but I'm not that person. I balance, I find ways of taking breaks and enjoying time with my kids. We love going to sporting events. My boys are both into lots of different activities, so they keep me busy in that way. I also have an amazing group of friends and support systems. And so taking time, the older I get, the more I realize that, having that support system is vital to just staying positive. People always ask me, how do you stay positive? You are usually always upbeat. And, for me, it's about having fun and laughing. We took a weekend last weekend and went to Nashville for a friend's birthday and turned right around and came right back on Sunday night and went to school Monday. But Monday I had complete energy because I spent the whole weekend laughing and having fun. And so awesome. Making sure that we don't forget our inner child as we get older and taking time to enjoy little things and have fun with what we want to do.
Beth, how are you looking to grow professionally and improve your practice this year? Now, you are a teacher of teachers, even a teacher of principals. Can you share about a specific professional goal or an area that you're working on?
Well, for me, I see like improvement as a very much a daily process.
Mm,
And so I work hard to just, I start my day by reading a blog post, and I know blog posts can be all kinds of varied ways of growth, but I have Rich Cryz, who's an amazing principal and author. He starts my day with a blog post. He has one a day that he shares, and then I try to stay very current, not only in leadership practices within school, but also leadership practices, just good leadership practices in the world in general. And so
right.
making sure that I don't just stick to books that are within our genre of educational literacy. And so, that's my biggest thing. I right now there is a free professional development opportunity going on called DitchSummit,
Mm-hmm.
and it was put together by Matt Miller, who's at JMattMiller on Twitter. And each day there's a different leader in some capacity. Sometimes it's a leader within the classroom or a leader in edtech. And so what's great about that is you have free professional development. You have to sign up for it. But I haven't watched them yet because I haven't made time to do that yet, because yesterday we had Annie Jr. last night, which was awesome. But I can come back and watch any of it's about an hour, and Matt interviews the author, or the speaker, or the teacher, or the leader. And then there are a lot of resources that go along with it. So making sure that I get into that, taking classes, I don't have my doctorate yet, but that's not something I'm super passionate about getting right now. It's not something that I see is going to help me lead my school better yet. It may be something at some point. But for me too, it means going to professional development myself, like making sure I'm going to conferences and not just contributing, but making sure that I sit back and learn as well and push my thinking, not only read, but actually apply. So making sure that I'm, and then too, like making sure I give others space.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's something with leaders. Sometimes we want to make sure everything's okay. So we feel like we're the ones that have to do. And really leading can be so much about amplifying the voices of others. And that's
right.
one of Shelley and I's biggest passions as well. We've started a leadership guide series within Lead Like a Pirate. And the leadership guides they have the same foundation of Lead Like a Pirate. However, they take one concept and go much deeper. And it's very heavily strategy driven, so that a busy leader or teacher can pick it up, read it in an hour and a half, and have 100 different ideas to do. Our first book is Lead with Culture, and it's by Jay Billy, who I spoke about earlier. And it's all different kinds of ideas on how you can improve school culture. And then the second book is Lead with Literacy by Mandy Ellis, and it's about how to lead with literacy. Like, what are you doing for me, I walk around with a book all the time, and then the kids, it's a great conversation starter with my kids. But little ideas like that Mandy gives that aren't super labor intensive, but great ways to help kids understand, especially for me in the middle grades, because for some reason in the middle grades, it seems as though kids lose their interest for reading a little bit more. And then our third book was Balance Like a Pirate, which is a phenomenal book by,
yes,
it's awesome. And what's great about it is it helps us understand that balance doesn't mean equal. It means making sure we're squared away and really finding focus and not overwhelming certain parts. And then we have a fourth book coming out very soon by a teacher leader. Her name is Neely Bartley, and it's Lead Beyond Titles. And so it's all about how to be a leader when, most people think leader and they automatically go to principal, assistant superintendent, etc. And, Shelley and I, Shelley has served in so many different capacities all the way up to an assistant superintendent. We both believe that, some of the strongest leaders are those that are leading within the classroom, because true change happens quicker from those that are classroom leaders. So how to amplify that voice as a classroom leader, and when your title doesn't say principal or assistant principal or director, how to lead from your role in that place. So that's another, for me, those, just taking that venture on has really helped make me a better leader, just from my involvement in the Lead Like a Pirate Guide series.
Very, very fun. When you spoke earlier, Beth, about your own personal balance and your attempt to strike that mix, I wondered if you'd read Balance Like a Pirate. It sounds like you're very familiar with that one and those authors and what they're all about. So another great book to check out. So Beth, it sounds like my next question might be a tough one for you, but when you think outside of education, if that exists for you, you mentioned a few things offhand there, but what's another area of learning and passion for you? What is it that ignites your passions as a human being outside of the school?
Well, I love to travel, and luckily, through Lead Like a Pirate, I've had the opportunity to kind of mix the two. I love learning about different, like just diverse cultures, and as I travel different places, I had the extreme opportunity to go to Alaska in October and meet with, I worked with their association for principals, and just phenomenal people. And I think sometimes, especially in middle United States, we don't realize that, for sometimes I just think everyone's kind of the same wherever you are. And as I get the chance to visit different states, and at the heart of everything, we are very similar, but it's amazing what people are able to do with different resources. I had no idea in Alaska, there's so many places that have zero connectivity, that are, principals taking snowmobiles or boats or planes to get to their school.
Wow.
It really helps put in perspective to me the struggles and strife that I have as a leader, really minimize when I see some of those things happening. And I had the opportunity to go to the University of Hawaii for a year. And so similar connection to Hawaii, and that it's a state, but wow, they have such different, just different things that they have going on in their educational system. And so really recognizing that we have to be cognizant of that as we work in education. But for me, just that travel, I love to travel. I love to learn in that way. I'm a avid reader of nonfiction as well. I love to learn about different things, different places. So for that, I love wine. That's another thing that I don't know if, that's definitely not, I don't know if that's educational related. I find that more educators enjoy wine, but I love, Shelley and I had the chance to speak in Napa last summer, and just, going and learning about the different types of wine and how wines develop. That's super interesting to me as well. So I just, it's interesting. I don't have one place that I feel like I get interested in things. And of course, when my kids get interested in things too, that helps. I become like baseball. I've always loved baseball. I'm an avid St. Louis Cardinal fan. But then my boys, when they were younger, they just, we would have baseball games going in our house when they would reenact the Cardinal games as they were going on. And so, of course, that drives my passion for that as well, too. So always open to learning new things, I think, for me. I think that's a super fun thing.
Well, that's a pretty good assortment of passions, and I love hearing about a lot of those: travel and sports. And with your reading too, we'll get to your book pick here in a moment, but I love how it sounds like you're striking a good balance between fiction and nonfiction. So big fan of that. Last of my questions before we do get into the voices and influence that are shaping your thinking, Beth, share about a personal habit or maybe a productivity hack that is contributing to your success. Is there something you do on the daily that helps you get it all done?
I think so. I think I have a couple things that I do. The first thing is I get up before everyone else, and I have about 30 to 45 minutes that I don't talk. I drink a cup of coffee. I watch the news, and I kind of veg, and that sets my tone. I used to do my workout in the morning, and I've learned that when I get up, if my feet are running from the moment I get up, I don't have kind of that calm when I get to school. So once I get to work, who knows what's going to happen. That's the biggest change between being a principal and a teacher is I kind of had somewhat I don't know that control is the right word in the classroom, but I kind of knew what was going to happen in the classroom every day. And as a leader, the principal, I've learned I have to kind of write my I did list instead of my to-do list, because at the end of the day, there's things I'm like, I could never have made up that was going to happen today. So I think for me that, and the other piece, and this kind of goes into the immersion, is social media is a huge tool that we use to tell our story of our school. Middle schoolers aren't as eager and willing to share with their parents of what's happening in the schoolhouse. And so social media has become our way of really helping with our community and our parent engagement and involvement. And so for me, that means when I go out, and I'm luckily at this point, at 4 years in, I am not the chief storyteller anymore of our school. I started out that way. And then our teachers and our kids actually are the ones that really tell our story way more than I do. But when I'm in classrooms and I'm taking pictures, I do it right then. I tweet it out right then. And I encourage our teachers too. I know we've found that good balance. There are some people that don't agree with that, but I know for me, I can't wait until I get home to look back at my camera roll and share out the stuff. So things that I can do, like I'm a mobile principal. I'm in my office to start the day. I'm in my office to end the day. And so we're a 3-level building. I make sure I am out. I have a backpack, and I'm a principal with a backpack. I tried the mobile desk, but that went 3 levels. It was too much elevator and all that. So I just have my backpack, and I'm gone. And I check my email on the go. For me, that helps me stay productive and makes me be able to get through the day so that I'm not sitting here at 4 o'clock, the least productive time of the day, and trying to get through emails that are somewhat important. So anyways, that's just a couple things that I do to keep myself focused and balanced and fresh, so that when I get home, my family gets not just what's left over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. The mobile principle. That's cool. So Beth, we're getting into, as I said, these quick picks, and I really enjoy hearing, who is speaking to you and what have you been listening to and who's been inspiring your practice lately. So we'll start at Twitter. Tell us about someone we should follow and share why they've been inspiring you lately.
Well, that's definitely a hard one. I have so many that inspire, and I think I typically go to hashtags versus people, because that's how I connect to people, is I find a hashtag and then I follow people within that hashtag. So I'm going pirate on this one, and I'm going to say, for me, my very personal hashtag is FMSTeach. That's our community that we have here at school. Within that hashtag, I think you will find multiple different people that are tweeting out things. And then, of course, too, our LeadLAP hashtag. I think Shelley Burgess, if I have to answer the question appropriately, I would say check out Shelley and Dave, and DBC. What the DBC Twitter feed is just, it connects you to so many amazing people that will help support you and inspire you and keep you fresh on what you're doing as an educator.
Awesome. And next, Beth, point us to an edtech tool that you currently love using in your professional practice, or maybe one that you see your teachers using to great effect in their classroom.
There are so many out there. And, one of my favorite quotes is, make sure that we're leading with verbs instead of nouns. And I think that's, like, for me, it's hard to just have one, because I think we use so many. We're a one-to-one school, so it's awesome that our kids are able to jump in there. I think I would have to go to social media as my first one.
Okay.
And because it's about what we're doing with it. And so, social media for us, that's the communication piece, is that communication matters so much, because when you do not have communication, that's one of the first ways of a toxic culture sneaking in. So social media is huge for me, but then I use lots of tech tools to make social media more effective. For example, Quik, Quik, is a free app put out by GoPro, and you can just dump pictures in and it makes you a beautiful video instantly. So I love Quik because I can take a lesson that I had the chance to go see, make a little quick video that's 15 to 30 seconds. It's got music, it's got sound, it's got everything. And then I can throw that out there and wow, there you go. I also love to use any type of graphic. Instead, anything that could be written in a paragraph, I make sure that I use either Canva or Poster My Wall, or we use Smore for our newsletters because it's so much more visually appealing.
Yeah.
Parents are busy too. We live in that day and age, and for me to think they're going to read a 3-paragraph memo, that's not going to happen. So how can I make sure that I make things more visually appealing so that our parents are wanting, honoring their time. Yeah. So those are just a few ideas there.
Making it mobile friendly as well for parents, I'm sure, is important.
Definitely.
And then recommend a book, Beth. Now, we've talked about Lead Like a Pirate and Teach Like a Pirate and maybe a few others. And you said that you are quite the reader. So again, this might be a tough one, but is there one that you've been reading lately, or maybe one of your all-time faves that you just have to share with us?
Well, the one that I actually just finished last week, one of our biggest focuses this year has been trauma-informed practices, as not only as a school leader, but as teachers, and then the effects, the compassion fatigue that happens to those that take care of so many that have trauma. But I just read the book called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog and Other Stories from a Child Psychiatrist Notebook. It's by Dr. Bruce Perry, and then also Maia. I can't pronounce her last name very well, but this helped me so much when I read this book. It's definitely not... it's a tearjerker. I mean, it's definitely emotion driven, but this child psychiatrist takes you through kids that have gone through horrific trauma, and then helps you understand that when kids go through that when they're young, it affects their brain, like their brain development. And, your brain develops from the back to the front. And sometimes we expect a lot of frontal lobe, like critical thinking happening with kids that have had horrific things happen, that they're not there yet. So it really helped me think of, okay, how do I make sure, how does this change what we do at school? So that's probably, the heaviest on my mind right now because I just finished it last week. I'm also reading right now, rereading. I had the chance to preview it. It's called Reclaiming Our Calling by Dr. Brad Gustafson. And it is a phenomenal book of how do we make sure that we really, are not stifled by those, heavy standardization, but really leading with innovation. And it's a great book, very inspirational. Brad is an amazing, amazing leader as well. So those are just a few. I have like 3 or 4 other books I'm reading, but I know you're trying to do the quick time right now.
Yeah. Well, and I know Brad's book just came out, so that's a great review for that one. That's Reclaiming Our Calling, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, Beth, are you a podcast listener? I feel like you are. If so, recommend a podcast and tell us why you love it and why we need to add it to our daily commute.
Awesome. Well, I have 2 that I like quite a bit. The Cult of Pedagogy by Jennifer Gonzales is my favorite. I everything she puts out just makes me go either yes or, oh, wow, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Right.
So what I also love is in case I can't listen, it's always transcripted too, so I can read the transcripts. The other one is Aspire Lead by Joshua Stamper, and that's a newer one that features, like, it's really about trying to support people that are new into leadership positions, and so lots of different people helping support our newest leaders. So those are 2 that I would definitely shout out.
Yes, I love everything Joshua is putting out there on Aspire as well. He's had some awesome guests, so definitely take a look at that one. Beth, our last 2 questions here are about videos. So tell us about a YouTube channel that you enjoy, or maybe one that you just find on your TV in your house these days, and tell us why we need to subscribe or at least check it out as well.
Wow. Well, in my house, and I my kids, they don't watch TV really anymore. They really are all about YouTube. And what's interesting to me is they like to watch other kids doing the things that they like to do. So to me, it's about how can we tap into that in our schools to, how are we having our kids do more creating and curating of things? Like my oldest is a Fortnite junkie. And so for him, he likes to watch other kids playing Fortnite so that he can get better at doing that, which I think is very interesting because I use YouTube in the same way. When I can't figure out how to do something, or the dishwasher breaks or whatever, the first place I go is YouTube, And so I think it's really all about that. And I think sometimes I hear parents frustrated that their kids are watching the stuff on YouTube. And I'm like, but what do you do when you don't know how to do something? And they said, oh, good point. So I think it's about that, is how can you, we have our YouTube channels at school. We're really working hard at making videos for parents of, hey, what's this whole thing with social media? What's that mean? And using Screencastify and then uploading it to YouTube, figuring out how to do that more. I enjoy that, but I don't watch a lot of YouTube myself. I will say that.
Sure. Fair enough. I love your point about screencasting. I think we need to jump on that a little bit more as education communities. Absolutely.
And it's really so easy. It's so easy. It's not that Screencastify is one of the easiest apps I've ever used. So I was scared of it at first, and then I got right in there. I was like, oh, wow, I did this in 5 minutes. Okay, not too bad.
Yeah. Last question, Beth, is strictly non-educational, just for fun. What are you watching on Netflix right now? And I'm sure you don't have a lot of time for it, Beth, but when you do get those moments to just relax and watch something entertaining, what are you turning on?
Well, I end my day usually watching some type of television. And on Netflix right now, I just revisited. I love watching the decades stuff. So I was just watching the 90s on Netflix last weekend and going through each, the big stuff of what was going on in the 90s and kind of reliving my past a little bit. So that was my last thing I watched there.
Oh, very fun. Well, yesterday a song from Dance Mix 94 came on the radio, and so I had a fun time educating my boys about some of my past as well.
But, most definitely.
Yeah. Beth, this has been awesome. What are the best ways for the listeners to follow you and get to know your content a little better?
Awesome. Well, the best way to connect is through Twitter at Beth Houf. I also am happy to, our Lead Like a Pirate website is, we have that going, leadlikeapirate.net. And then we do have we're not as active on our Facebook page, but we definitely do have a Facebook page as well. But you can definitely get us on our website has lots of resources. And then, of course, Twitter. And you can just follow that LeadLAP community on Twitter at #LeadLAP.
Fantastic. Sounds good, Beth. Again, thank you so much for sharing your time with the podcast and our audience today. You've given us a lot of good things to think about, particularly around culture and leadership. So, Beth, take care, and let's talk again soon.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. My pleasure. Thanks, Beth. Thanks so much for joining me here today on the Teachers on Fire podcast. For show notes and links from this episode, visit teachersonfire.net. You can also follow the show at Teachers on Fire on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Medium. And again, please do subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm your host, Tim Cavey, saying goodbye for now, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast.